Good morning, everyone. Hopefully the peace of Jesus be with each of you. Before we start, I'd like to invite everybody to come for our book club that will be on next Saturday, on 21st. And we will be here, actually we'll be online this time, due to the situation that we are living, that we need to be careful. And we are going to be reflecting about Missionários da Luz. It's a book written by Francisco Xavier, psychographed by him, and the author is Andrea Luiz. So we are reading this collection of Andrea Luiz, and it's a very important. There are so many important reflections and knowledge that we are invited to know about in this book. And we'll be from 3 to 5 p.m. and we are going to provide more information next week on 18 with how we are going to set up this meeting online, because this is new. Like today, we are only having our public meeting on Sundays for the first time, only online, and but we are confident that this will not take so long to finish, and we will be together soon. So then again, everybody's invited for our book club, and now we are going to start our talk today. Let's start with a reflection, harmonized text from Living Spring. And the text is number 35. Let us spread the good. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Paul, Romans chapter 12 to 21st. When facing evil, all the elements of nature do all they can to restore harmony and ensure the victory of the good. When a storm seems to have destroyed the landscape, the divine forces of life come together to restore it. The sun shines on the slough, healing the wounds of the soil. The wind caresses the grove, drying out the branches. The song of the birds replaces the voice of the thunder. The plain receives the runoff without complaining and transforms it into precious fertilizer. The air, which bore the weight of the clouds and the shock of the destructive lightning, becomes light and pleasant. The tree, with broken or damaged fronds, regenerates itself in silence, so as to produce new blossoms and new fruit. The earth, our common mother, has to endure mudslides and hailstorms periodically, but it does not cease to enrich the good more and more each day. In view of this, why do we harbor the bile and bitterness of evil in our heart? Let us learn to cope with adversity, educating its energies to improve our lives. Ignorance is merely a long night that eventually gives way to the sun of wisdom. Use the treasure of your love in all directions and spread the good everywhere you go. Even when deluged with silt, the spring does not give up. It just receives it and transforms it into blessings as it gently and humbly flows along to everyone's benefit. Let's pray. Our Master Jesus, we humbly ask for your presence with us. And along with our guardian angels, to help us to reflect about this topic that is so important nowadays. But mainly about your teachings, Master, that brings us the consolation and the faith that we need to overcome this temporary storm. Guide us and help us to build the serenity, the faith in the future, and the patience through these all times. Thank you for being with us and help us to improve our knowledge and our faith. So be it. Okay. So today we'd like to invite everybody to talk about how to be patient in times of pandemic. Patience is the virtue of the month, and it's just perfect for the times that we are living now. That we as humankind are living these times of fear. And we'd like to invite everybody to look ourselves and to look our neighbors and see how many hearts are suffering due to impact of this word pandemic. Actually, the World Health Organization advises that we need to use this word very carefully because it can cause unreasonable fear, unjustified acceptance that the fight is over, leading to unnecessary suffering and death. So besides it's real, we need to be careful because words, they have power, and we need to be careful how we understand them and how we act towards those words. And that's the reflection that I would like to invite everybody to join us today and think about it, because we are all suffering and we are causing suffering when we don't reflect, when we don't see that God is in command of everything. But let's talk a little bit more about the strong and negative impact of these words have in our lives. So as I said, we all know that the World Health Organization characterizes COVID-19 as a pandemic. And what is a pandemic? So according with the same organization, is an epidemic occurring worldwide or over every wild area, crossing international boundaries and usually affecting a large number of people. So this is what is happening. And because of that, the impact that everybody is suffering nowadays is fear, insecure feeling, anxiety, stress. And to sum up all these feelings together, it's a terror. It's a terror feeling that we are having today date, and we should reflect a little bit about all these negative and strong feelings, what these feelings are doing to ourselves, and what we are spreading around. So, as I said, terror, it's a word that has a better meaning for all these other adjectives together. So let's see a little bit more, let's try to understand a little bit more about this word. So I would like to ask that everybody reflect those questions. When you hear the words terror or terrorism and terrorist, how do you feel? When you find out about an act of terror or terrorism, how do you react? And what do you know about terror, terrorism, and terrorists? Because terror carries on those other words together, terrorism and terrorist. But well, let's see what all those questions has to do with the situation of pandemic that we are living now. Let's go through each word a little bit deep. So terror means an instance of cause of intense fear or anxiety, violence or threats of violence used for intimidation or coercion. So an instance or cause of intense fear. So this word pandemic, the fear that we are having is intense or not. It's causing us anxiety. It's causing people fight to each other over toilet papers or any product, causing people invade groceries and steal things that are totally unnecessary for the situation that we are living. How about terrorism? Systematic use of violence and intimidation to achieve some goal. So, besides, everybody knows that we should be more careful how to react, and actually I would like to emphasize that we should act and not react to adversities in life. That means we should reflect, we should think twice, double think about how we are doing, what we are doing, and what feelings that we are bringing up. So when people, besides they know that it's not necessary to buy so much stuff, it's not necessary to react in a selfish or violent way. People are fighting, people are are buying, stocking lots of products at home and not thinking about their neighbors, their brother, their sister, that others will need that product, and maybe in not that amount. And terrorist is a person who employs terror or terrorism. So, about this last word, and we are not talking here about terrorism attacks in not this sense. Like we trying to understand and reflect how we are, what we are doing during this time, and maybe we are doing something that is very similar to those adjectives. So when we spread fake news about this disease, when we don't reflect about what we receive as information, and we don't search for the source of that information, if it's true or not, and just keep spreading, not seeing if that news or that information is following the law of love, justice, and charity, what we are doing. We should reflect, we are invited to reflect about the message that we are passing along, if they are true, if they are useful, and if they pass through the major law. So we are not spreading the terror between our beloved ones, in ourselves. So then all this situation that we are living now leads us to ask questions, to know exactly what do we know about this and how do we feel about this situation, how this word pandemic, how this word coronavirus impact myself. So to go to the very to the beginning of the origin of why this is happening, I would like to ask why is a pandemic disease, and how the doctrine can help us to understand. So all this meaning was brought from dictionary.com before I change my page. So why do pandemic diseases happen? Are there divine laws involved? And how should spiritists react or act? So, pandemic diseases, war, terrorism attacks, evil situations. From where do these situations come from? Maybe many people would say God allows this happens. God is punishing the human beings. We are invited to think about that. What does the doctrine of the Spirit say about that? So, we went to the Spirit's book, on the book 2, on the chapter 7, to the question 258, to try to answer some of those questions. And Kardec, in this question, he asks to the spirits, when they are in a errant state, they means here spirits, us. Errant state means when we are in spiritual life, in our real life, before we incarnate, and before they assume a new physical existence. Do spirits see what will happen in that new existence? So, let's see what the spirits say. they choose the type of trials that they will experience. And free will exists in this freedom of choice. So, I just would like to call everybody's attention to this free will. It's a right that God gives to all human beings. We have the free will to choose what we want for our lives. So then, now we see that we choose the type of trials that we will experience. Correct. So Kardec continues. And he asks, so does God not inflict trials and tribulations as punishment? So for those that are questioning if God is trying to punishing the human beings for lots of wrongdoings that we are, as imperfection spirits we still are, and we are committing, we are in suffering and inflict suffering to each other. So it's a very important question. So God is inflicting us trials and tribulations as punishment? And the question 258a, the Spirit says, nothing comes to pass without the permission of God. So, for it is He, God, who has established all the laws that rule the universe. You would have to inquire why He has made such a law, instead of taking some other way. In giving to a spirit the liberty of choice, He leaves to him the entire responsibility of his acts and of their consequences. So let's stop a little bit here and try to reflect a little bit more about this answer from the spirits that is very important. So nothing comes to pass without the permission of God. So what we are living now is coming through because God permits. But this answer says to you should have to inquire why. So inquire the laws that rule the universe. Not inquire God, but He who has established all the laws that rule the universe. So if you think about that, the universe is perfectly harmonized. All the planets, they move in a perfect way. So that means that the laws are perfect. And we are invited to inquire, to investigate the laws. So in that way, we are going to learn. We're going to know how they work, how the laws work. And then, with more knowledge, we are going to have more discernment. We are going to follow the laws in a better way. And God as well gives the human beings, the spirits, the liberty of choice. So here, in this last paragraph, we have 3 laws here. All the laws that rules the universe. And we are supposed to inquire, or investigate, or understand better. So the Spirit has the liberty of choice. So this liberty of choice is related to the law of free will, and leaves to him the entire responsibility, law of responsibility, and his acts and of their consequences, cause and effect. So laws of liberty, responsibility, cause and effect. And above all those laws, the law of love, justice, and charity. And another law that we are all us are following through is the law that was in the prior slide, a new physical existence, the law of reincarnation. that provide us the opportunity to be here and to exercise our free will. Many of you will say, but this word is so unfair, and sometimes we are not responsible for something that is happening. We didn't do anything. This is happening to us. But there are injustices, yes, there are. But there are no wronged people. So we need to reflect a little bit more about that. And the Kardec books bring all the answers for these questions. Lots of text that shows up. This is correct. And this is an opportunity for us. Why this is happening to me? It's an opportunity for me to learn. It's an opportunity for me to inquire the laws that are in my conscience. Because it's there that the divine laws are in each of us. And we can learn precious, very precious lessons. However, besides that, we know that nothing comes true without the permission of God, and why God permitted this. So maybe we can find the answer in the other texts that we bring from Genesis, chapter 3. We can see there a text about goodness and wickedness. However, evil exists and it has a cause. Let's see what's the source of goodness and weaknesses. Wickedness. So, God being the origin of all things, and his nature being all wisdom, justice, and goodness, all which proceeds from him must be imbued with these attributes. For that which is infinitely wise, just, and good can produce nothing unreasonable, wicked, or wrong. The wickedness which we observe cannot then be derived from him. So, again, this emphasizes that besides there is a permission from God that is happening, that everything that is happening, we need to bear in mind that we have the free will. And if it's bad consequences is happening to us, it's because it's due to our free will. The cause is in some part of our journey. Can be now, can be in the past lives, can be a trial that we chose when we are in the rent life. And continues. But the most numerous evils are those which men create by their own vices. Those which spring from their pride, from their selfishness, from their ambition, from their cupidity, from their excess in all things. Hence the cause of wars, calamities, dissensions. Dissensions here means disagreement. Injustice, oppression of the feeble. Feeble means the weak people. By the strong, and of the greater part of diseases. So here we can see that most of the problems that we are facing nowadays, and not only the situation that we're living now, but all the violence that we watch in the news, or we see on the streets, came from ourselves. So God has established wisdom laws that guide the man to the good, to the justice, and to the love. And these laws are engraved in our conscience. The only thing that we need to do is inquire, investigate the laws that are in our conscience, in order to follow them correctly and not to face bad consequences, but good consequences. Because the cause and effect law, it's neutral in itself. All the laws are neutral in itself. But it depends how we act, how we react in our automatic way of living. We have the consequences of not reflect a little bit more about it. So that means that if we follow all the laws of God, if we investigate, inquire them, we're going to be happy. So in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 5, we found this test. If a man conformed himself rigorously to the divine, he would evade, without doubt, the severest evils, and would live happily upon earth. If he doesn't obey then, it's by virtue of his free will, and he must submit himself to the consequences. So, that is the answer that it's give us a very good fundamental what we're talking about. That we are invited, the humankind in the whole are invited to reflect about it, because this is happening to everybody in all the countries, globally. But God, in His infinity, love, mercy, He always brings something good from something that is not good. And you can see that here. The evils to which men are exposed by ignorance, because we are still imperfect spirits, and we were created simple and ignorant, so we are learning during this process, are a stimulant for the exercise of their intelligence, for all their moral and physical faculties, by inducing them to seek for means to shelter themselves from them. So pain and suffering are incentives which spur men onward in the march of progress. So, pain and suffering sometimes is the only way that we learn. And we can see that very clear, that all the scientists and all over the world are working 24/7 to find the cure for this disease, a vaccine. We have here in Saskatchewan scientists that were able to separate the virus. So many good news are happening, but sometimes we're just dragging, we're just following the bad news. You're not paying attention on the good sides and the bright sides of everything. Everything has a good side, has a bright side. And maybe it's just our look. We are not seeing, we're not looking to the good side. So if a man didn't have some diversities, not have any thing that could incentivize him or her to find the to solve the problem or to find a solution for their problems, they are not gonna evolve, they're not gonna progress. So that's the reason that God permits that something that this what we are living now is happening, because that's incentivate us to be a better people, a better person, and incentivate our intelligence to seek for ways to help, ways to evolve. If man was not have this pain and suffering, he would invent nothing and discover nothing. So everything that we have today came from a necessity that was helping the man to find solutions for many problems. So sometimes it's just a little problem, and sometimes big problems like these ones that we are living. And for some consolations, and how us spiritists should act, we brought a reflection from a message from Bezerra de Menezes, psychographed by Divaldo Franco, November 9, 2014, where Bezerra de Menezes says, "Our beloved planet is still cloaked in shadows, remains in its inferior category because we, those who are connected to it, are still inferior. And thus our moral transformation towards good happens under Jesus' protection, our model and guide. The dense shadows are thinning out in order for the good news of light and peace to reach their apex at a not so distant time. We are still in a planet of trials and tournaments, but we are not alone. Jesus protects us. Our planet is navigating in the universe with Jesus." And he continues, "Let us never forget in our worries that the earthly ship, our planet, has a sailor who safely steers it to the harbor of peace. We all know that the moral transformation of each individual is hard and long due to ancestral atavism, and that the law has the resource of collective exiles in order to speed it up the arrival in the new area." So, for those that don't know what is atavism, it's a kind of a throwback. It's a kind of, we are holding back in our some knowledge or some concepts that we have, and we are not open to new ones. And the earth, as know, is passing through a transformation from a trials and tournaments planet to a regeneration planet. That's the new area that Bezerra is talking about. So allow yourselves to be inspired by them, the mentors, and go on singing the hymn of optimism and hope, thinning out darkness, not retaining fear or shadow which dominate many conscience at the moment. Do not spread evil, only display good, so that victory is not put off. So Bezerra is inviting us to be through the optimism, to be optimistic, thank you, and to have hope, and to refrain the fear, to have more faith that Jesus is the sailor that is guiding our earthly ship. So when we don't spread bad news, when instead of saying, yes, this is true, this is happening, or comment something bad in this situation, just put some words of optimism, just put some words of, no, everything is fine, we just need to be careful, we need to follow the government instructions, the authorities' instructions, but we need to try to not be dragged into this terror wave that is getting bigger and bigger each day. So that's the role of spiritists, that we are invited. We are invited to be more faithful, to have the certainty, the serenity, to look all this is happening as a learning, a lesson that we need to learn, and not have the fear or the shadow of the fear cover knowledge, our faith. So then the question is, why are we invited to have patience in times like this? Because of this message that Bezerra de Menezes brought to us in 2014. Because the doctrine of the Spirites, the doctrine of the spirits are full of consolation, full of knowledge that clarifies all the whys, all the hows, and so we can be more optimistic during these times. And on the Gospel of Spiritism, we find this other great inspiration from the mentors: the calm and resignation which can be observed according to the manner in which terrestrial life is viewed, together with confidence in the future, give the spirit a serenity which is the best preventive measure against madness. So sometimes people are only reacting in automatically way, in a mad, like if they are creating madness. So we need to not allow this happen to us. Be confident in the future. Know that everything has a reason to happen, and nothing happens by chance. And the way that we view our terrestrial life as a temporary life, that we are here for a very short period of time to learn, that brings us calm and resignation and patience. So then all we spiritists, all of us, are invited to practice, to be the good person, to practice all the virtues of the good person that the Gospel of Spiritism brings to us. And what it says is the truly good person is one who complies with the laws of justice, love, and charity in their highest degree of purity. If they examine their conscience concerning their own actions, they will ask themselves if they have violated those laws, if they have practiced any evil, if they have done all the good that was possible, if they have voluntarily disregarded any occasion to be useful, if anyone has any complaint to make of them, and finally, if they have done to others everything that they would wish done to themselves. They deposit their faith in God, in His goodness and His justice, and in His wisdom. They know that without His permission nothing can happen, so they submit themselves in all things to His will. So that's what we are invited to remember, to be good persons, to try to practice these questions to ourselves, to see if we are following the laws of justice, love, and charity. Excuse me. So, good people have faith in the future, which is the reason to put spiritual possessions before those of a temporary nature. They know that all vicissitudes of life, all pain, and all deceptions are trials or are tournaments, and accept them without murmuring. So, this is the guidance for all spiritists during this time, trying to be more and more aware how we are invited to behave ourselves, how we are invited to develop the virtues that we are invited to develop in ourselves during this time. It's a great occasion. It's a good opportunity to practice all the virtues that we are learning from how to be a good person. But besides all the virtues that we are invited to exercise during this time, during these times of fear, terror, we are invited to, as well, to follow the rules, to not do anything wrong to our neighbors. So for that, we are also invited to take measures that protects ourselves and everybody. So I just would like to bring again some of the instructions that the World Health Organization and all the authorities is spreading around how we should protect ourselves and our family and our friends. So just a little reminder I would like to bring to you. So again, proper way to wash hands. So the proper way to wash hands is 1 or 2 pumps of soap. Rub your hands with the soap, but not just the palms, but also between the fingers and the fingertips for a minimum of 20 to 30 seconds, or 1 ABCs or 2 happy birthdays. So it's not only wash the hands, but wash carefully with soap, and the friction that kills the virus is not the soap and water itself, but the friction that kills the virus. And that's the reason that we need to do that during at least 20 or 30 seconds. Another proper way that the health organization is advising is the proper way to use hand sanitizer or rubbing alcohol. 1 or 2 pumps of hand sanitizer or rubbing alcohol. So rub your hands with the product, not just the palms, but also between the fingers, nail beds, and fingertips until the product dries up. That's the proper way to use the wash your hands with soap and water, and to use the hand sanitizer and rubbing alcohol. So that will help you to prevent to pass along the virus or to not get the virus in your system. And also I'd like to advise that some people are so scary and under so much fear that they are having extreme acts with those proper ways to wash their hands. Here in Calgary, we had a case of a woman that was sent to the hospital because she burns her hands. She was using extremely hot water and application of rubbing alcohol after each wash. So responsibility is important, but we need to apply common sense so we don't hurt ourselves, we don't spread fake news, we don't damage even more, we don't cause any damage to anybody. And to finish this our meeting today, I would like to bring these words that were that came from the Director General, the World Health Organization Director General, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. His name is a little bit hard to say, and he is a very love, words full of love and fraternal words. Let's see. So let hope be the antidote to fear. Let solidarity be the antidote to blame. And let our shared humanity be the antidote to our shared truth. So that means that although we have different languages, we came in different countries, we have different religions, we are all human beings. And that's how we need to behave to ourselves, being Christians, being human beings, share humanity. Is this the only thing that we have in common? Hopefully everybody has a very good weekend and a very good start of the week, full of serenity, patience, and faith. Thank you for watching us, and be with Jesus' peace. Thank you. Did you finish? Yeah, let's do it. Dear Jesus, we really appreciate your presence with us, helping us to reflect about the diversities that we face in our lives, to see the cause of each adversity, at each trial that we pass through, and for giving us the guide, for teach us how to follow God's law, how to be a better person, a good person, and then we can harvest good consequences, because we had spread good seeds. Help us every day, each day, be with us through our guardian angels to help us to reflect how to be better, mainly during these times where there is so many fear around us. Help us to bring your peace, your confidence in the future, and the faith in God. Thank you. So be it.